Have you ever felt like you're hanging on by a thread? Like you've prayed and cried out, but God is silent? Before you give up, I need you to hear this. God has not forgotten you. In fact, your breakthrough is on the way, and it's closer than you think. Stay with me because what I'm about to share with you could be the very word that changes your life. Let me take you on a journey of hope and faith and restoration that will show you that God is still moving even in our darkest hour. See, there are times in life when we feel like we've lost our faith, and maybe it feels like the trial is not ending. You may feel like God is distant even though you've prayed and prayed, yet nothing seems to change. Sometimes it can even feel like God has absolutely forgotten about you, or that your faith is not strong enough. I know that in those moments it feels like giving up, and it's easy to feel hopeless and abandoned. But even when it seems like you've lost your faith, God has not lost you. I want to remind you of something powerful today. God's love for you isn't based on how strong your faith is. It's based on God's own unchanging character. Even when we are faithless, God still remains faithful. Losing faith doesn't mean that you're lost forever. It's just an invitation to allow God to carry you through the storm. I don't know if you know about a man called Nick Vujicic. He was born with no arms or legs. See, as a child, Nick struggled. He was often bullied and felt hopeless. And oftentimes, he couldn't understand why God would allow him to live such a difficult life. He said at one point he even wanted to end his life. His faith was gone and he couldn't find any purpose for himself. But God wasn't finished with Nick. During his lowest moment, God reminded him that even with an incomplete body, his spirit was not. And as Nick began to trust God even when he couldn't see it, God restored his faith and gave him a powerful mission. It was a mission to inspire others and share his story to people who felt like they couldn't go on. Today, Nick is a renowned world speaker, and he is often sharing his story of faith and resilience. Nick has spoken to millions of people around the globe, and his story often offers hope to people who have lost their way. See, Nick's story is proof that God can restore our faith no matter how broken we feel. See, God specializes in bringing life to death situations, including our faith. So if you've lost your faith, take heart. You're not the first, and you definitely won't be the last. Even in the Bible, we see great men and women struggle with their faith. Take, for example, Thomas, one of Jesus' disciples. After Jesus was crucified and resurrected, Thomas couldn't believe that Jesus had risen. And he told the other disciples that until he saw the marks of the nails in Jesus' hands and touched the wounds, he wouldn't believe. But instead of Jesus rebuking Thomas, Jesus came to him and invited him to touch his wounds. In John 20 verse 7, Jesus meets us in our doubts and doesn't condemn us. He always restores us. So when you lose your faith or if you've lost your faith, remember that God is patient. He is not angry with you for doubting or even for feeling weak. In fact, He is walking with you even when you can't feel Him. And like a shepherd, He leaves the 99 to find the one lost sheep, just like it's written in Luke chapter 5 verse 4. God is searching for you in your struggle, and He wants to bring you to a place of peace and trust. It's okay to cry out to God and tell Him how you're feeling. David in Psalms often poured out his heart to God in moments of pain and despair. In Psalm 22 verse 1, David cried, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Yet in the end, David always returned to a place of trust, saying in Psalm 23 verse 4, "Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil because you are with me." Your faith journey isn't always going to be strong. It's about leaning on God even when you're weak. So if you've lost faith today, I want to encourage you to just take it one day at a time. Just as Nick found hope in an impossible situation, you too can find faith again. God hasn't given up on you. In fact, He's waiting on you to show you His power. God wants to show you His love in ways you have never experienced before. Even in your weakness, Bible says in 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 9, that God's strength is made perfect in our weakness. And I want to remind you that faith isn't about having all the answers or never struggling. It's about trusting that God is bigger, way bigger than your doubts. So when you've lost your way, please remember, God is the one who brings us back to Himself. God never leaves you even when you feel lost, and your faith can be restored. Remember, it's not because of your faith, it's because of God's amazing love and grace. So this is your reminder that God is moving even in your darkest hour. If this message resonated with you, kindly subscribe to my channel at Abba Asian on YouTube. I usually share more encouragement and hope as we walk this journey of faith. God is faithful even when we are not. Never forget that. Shalom.